Marcus Crane's fist slammed the table so hard the coffee cups exploded. "Sign now or die, old woman. Margaret Sullivan." Old, barely 95 pounds, didn't flinch. He grabbed her wrist, twisted until something popped. She gasped but refused to scream. 48 hours. Sign or I'll bury you next to your husband." When she spat in his face, he backhanded her so hard her body left the ground. She crashed into the counter. Blood pooled on cold tiles. 35 witnesses. Complete silence. Nobody knew her son was a Hell's Angel. Nobody knew he'd disappeared 8 years ago. 300 miles away, a phone buzzed. A video played, and something that had been dead for 8 years woke up hungry. Subscribe now and follow this story to the end. Drop your city in the comments. Let's see how far justice travels. Margaret Sullivan's hands trembled as she poured coffee at 4:52 in the morning. Same time as always. 50 years of the same routine. She lifted the cup, stopped. Her eyes caught the photograph hidden behind the sugar jar. Daniel in his leather jacket. That wild grin. 26 years old in that picture. 54 now, if he was still alive. "Where are you, baby?" she whispered. The coffee went cold in her hands. Carmen Reyes kicked open the back door at 6:15. Her daughter Lily half asleep on her shoulder. "You're early again, Mrs. S." "Couldn't sleep." "You never sleep." Carmen laid Lily on the office cot, tucked a blanket around her small body. The little girl mumbled something about pancakes and drifted off. "Bad dreams?" Carmen asked. Margaret didn't answer. She was wiping the same spot on the counter she'd wiped 6 times already. The spot where Patrick used to lean when he'd sneak up behind her and kiss her neck. 50 years of marriage, 15 years of missing him. Carmen watched her. This woman had given her a job when she was 6 months pregnant, and every other business in town had slammed doors in her face. Single mother. Single. No references. No experience. Nobody wanted that kind of trouble. Margaret hadn't asked a single question, just handed her an apron and said, "You start tomorrow." "He's not coming back, Mrs. S." Carmen's voice was gentle. "It's been 8 years." "I know." "Then why do you keep watching that road?" Margaret finally looked up. Her eyes were wet. "Because that's what mothers do." By 8:30, the restaurant was packed. Truckers grabbing breakfast before the long haul to Albuquerque. Ranchers complaining about cattle prices. A few tourists photographing the authentic Southwest experience, like poverty was some kind of aesthetic. Margaret moved through the chaos with the ease of someone who'd done this for half a century. Refilling cups, remembering orders, calling regulars by name. Henry Castillo grabbed her wrist as she passed his usual stool. "Maggie, we need to talk." "I'm busy, Henry." "Town meeting last night. Crane's making his move." She stopped. "What kind of move?" "Final offer. Everyone on this block either sells by Friday or faces consequences." Henry lowered his voice. "The Rodriguez family. Someone slashed their tires. All 4 vehicles. Same night they refused to sign. That's illegal. So is half of what Marcus Crane does. But he owns the sheriff, owns the mayor. Hell, he probably owns the judge, too." Margaret pulled her wrist free. "I'm not selling." "Maggie, my husband built this place brick by brick. He died before he could see our 50th anniversary." Her voice hardened. "This restaurant is his legacy. I'm not handing it to some Vegas developer so he can build a casino." Henry shook his head. "Patrick would want you safe more than he'd want this building standing. Patrick would want me to fight. Patrick's dead, Maggie, and if you're not careful, you will be too." 9:17 a.m. The front door exploded open. Everyone froze. Marcus Crane walked in like he owned the place, which, if his lawyers had their way, he soon would. Expensive suit, gold watch, the kind of confidence that comes from hurting people who can't fight back. 2 men flanked him. Victor, ex-military, did 4 years for aggravated assault before Crane bailed him out. Santos. Nobody knew his story, but the scars on his knuckles told enough of it. Marcus scanned the room. His eyes found Margaret, and he smiled. That smile that made people sign papers they didn't want to sign. Mrs. Sullivan. His voice carried like a threat wrapped in silk. Just who I wanted to see. Margaret set down her coffee pot. Mr. Crane, I believe my answer was clear. Answers change. Mine don't. He walked toward her. Slow. Deliberate. Each step making someone in the restaurant flinch. He slid into the booth across from her. Uninvited. Unwelcome. Let me paint you a picture, he said. Crane Development is offering you $90,000 above market value. That's not a negotiation. That's a gift. I don't want your gift. Everyone wants money. I want to die in the place my husband built. That's worth more than anything you can offer. Marcus leaned close. His breath reeked of last night's whiskey. Your husband's been rotting in the ground for 15 years. He doesn't care about this restaurant. He doesn't care about anything. Because dead men don't have opinions. The room went silent. Margaret's voice didn't waver. Get out. I'm not finished. Yes, you are. Marcus Crane had broken men twice his size. He'd made mayors weep, made police chiefs beg for mercy. But this 81-year-old woman looked at him like he was nothing. Like he was a stain she'd wipe off her counter and forget about by lunch. Something in him snapped. He stood, adjusted his jacket, smiled. That smile that made people disappear. You know, I did some digging. Interesting family you've got, Mrs. Sullivan. He paused. Dead husband, no siblings. 1 son. Margaret's face changed. Just barely, just enough. Daniel Sullivan. Marcus let the name hang in the air like smoke. Ran with the Hells Angels, big bad biker, until he got a kid killed and ran away like a coward. Don't what? Tell the truth. Marcus laughed. Your son let a 23-year-old boy die, then disappeared. No funeral, no apology, just gone. 8 years of nothing. You don't know anything about my son? I know he's not here. I know he abandoned you. I know that when I take this restaurant, and I will take it, there's not a damn thing anyone can do to stop me. Margaret stood, all 5 feet of her, looking up at this monster who thought money made him God. My son made mistakes, but he's more of a man than you'll ever be. Marcus's eye twitched. What did you say? You heard me. You stupid old... Margaret grabbed her coffee, threw it in his face. The restaurant gasped. Marcus stumbled backward, hot liquid streaming down his $1,000 suit. His expression shifted from shock to pure rage, the kind of rage that leaves bodies in shallow graves. Victor, Santos, everyone out, now! The enforcers moved. Chairs scraped. Customers fled. In 30 seconds, the restaurant was empty except for Margaret and Carmen hidden behind the counterphone already recording. Marcus wiped coffee from his eyes. His hand was shaking. Not from pain, from fury. You just made the last mistake of your life. I've made plenty of mistakes. You're not one of them. He grabbed her wrist, twisted. She gasped, but didn't scream. Wouldn't give him the satisfaction. Listen to me carefully, old woman. I work for people who don't lose. People who make problems disappear. He leaned closer. Your husband's grave is in Holy Cross Cemetery. Plot 147. Beautiful headstone. Patrick Sullivan. Beloved husband and father. Margaret's blood went cold. Be a shame if something happened to it. Be a real shame if something happened to you lying next to it. Let go of me. Sign the papers. Never. He twisted harder. She felt something pop in her wrist. Pain shot up her arm like fire. Your son's not coming. Nobody's coming. You're alone, Margaret. Completely alone. She looked up at him. This man who thought fear was the same as power. This man who'd never known what real strength looked like. My son has more honor in his little finger than... The slap came without warning. Her head snapped sideways. Her body left the ground. She hit the floor, hard skull cracking against the edge of a chair. Blood everywhere. Lip split open. Gash above her eye. Behind the counter, Carmen stuffed her fist in her mouth to keep from screaming. Marcus stood over Margaret, breathing hard. 48 hours. Sign the papers or I'll make sure you're buried in an unmarked grave where even God can't find you. He grabbed the unsigned contract, crumpled it, threw it at her bleeding face. Then he straightened his tie, fixed his hair, became the businessman again. Oh, and if your coward son does show up, tell him Marcus Crane doesn't scare. Tell him I'll do to him what I did to you, only slower. The door slammed behind him. Carmen burst from behind the counter the second the engine faded. Mrs. Oh God. Margaret was trying to stand. Her legs wouldn't cooperate. I'm fine. You're bleeding everywhere. Your eye... Carmen's hands were shaking so hard she could barely hold the towel. We have to call the police. Police work for him. Then the state police, the FBI, someone. Sweetheart. Margaret grabbed Carmen's hand, squeezed. There's no one. This town is his. The law is his. We're on our own. There has to be something. There isn't. Carmen looked at this woman. 81 years old, blood running down her face, still refusing to break, still refusing to give up. What about Daniel? Margaret closed her eyes. He's not coming. You don't know that. He hasn't called in 8 years, hasn't visited, hasn't... Her voice cracked. He's gone, Carmen. My son is gone. That night, Carmen sat in her car outside the restaurant. Lily was asleep in the back seat, thumb in her mouth, dreaming whatever dreams 5-year-olds dream. The video was loaded on Carmen's phone. She'd spent 4 months tracking down this number, a friend of a biker who knew where Daniel Ghost Sullivan had last been seen. A Gallup area code, probably a burner phone, probably disconnected, but maybe not. She typed 3 words. They hurt her. Attached the video. Her thumb hovered over send. Mrs. Sullivan had said not to, had begged her not to. He made his choice. Let him live with it. But Carmen Reyes had survived too much to watch the only person who believed in her die at the hands of some rich psychopath. She pressed send. Gallup, New Mexico. 11:47. Daniel Sullivan woke to his phone buzzing. He'd been dreaming about Eddie again. Same dream every night for 8 years. The truck running the red light, the screech of metal. Eddie's body trapped under 2 tons of twisted steel. Help me, Ghost. Please, it hurts. It hurts so bad. He couldn't save him. Couldn't do anything but hold his hand while he bled out on the asphalt. 23 years old. Bright future. Dead because Daniel wasn't fast enough. Dead because Daniel made the wrong call. He grabbed the phone. Unknown number. Video attachment. Probably spam. Probably nothing. He pressed play, and his world ended. His mother hit the floor, blood on her face. A man standing over her smiling. 48 hours. Sign or I'll bury you next to your husband. Daniel watched it again, and again. And again, his hands were shaking. His vision was blurring. 8 years. 8 years he'd stayed away because he thought he didn't deserve her, because he thought his guilt made him poison, because he thought she was better off without a son who got boys killed. And while he was hiding, someone was hurting her. He threw the phone across the room, put his fist through the wall, screamed until his throat tore. Then he went outside. The Harley sat under a tarp behind the motel. 4 years since he'd touched it. 4 years since he'd ridden anything. He pulled back the tarp. The bike was exactly as he'd left it. Black paint, chrome pipes, the Hell's Angels patch still on the saddlebag. He'd earned that patch through blood and brotherhood, through years of loyalty that most people would never understand. And he'd walked away from it. Because of Eddie. Because of guilt. Because he thought running would make the pain stop. It didn't. It never did. Daniel ran his hand over the gas tank, over the handlebars, over the patch that had defined him for 20 years. Then he pulled out his phone and made the call. 3 rings. Who the hell is this? Hawk, it's Ghost. Silence. 10 seconds. You've got some nerve calling this number. I know. 8 years, Daniel, not one word. We thought you were dead. Your mother thought you were dead. I know. You abandoned your brothers, abandoned your club, abandoned that boy's mother who still cries at his grave every Sunday. I know. Then why are you calling? Daniel closed his eyes. Someone hurt my mother. The line went quiet. Hit her, threatened her, some developer trying to steal her restaurant. And what do you want from me? I want to come home. Hawk laughed, hard and cold. Home. You don't have a home anymore. You gave that up when you took off your patch. I'm not asking for the patch. I'm asking for help. Why should I help you after everything you did? Because it's my mother, Hawk. Because she's 81 years old and bleeding in a town where the law works for the people hurting her. Because I can't do this alone. More silence. Then, where are you? Gallup, 4 hours out. She's in Silver Ridge. Yeah. We'll be there tomorrow, noon. Daniel's throat tightened. Hawk, don't. This isn't forgiveness. This is family, and nobody touches family. A pause. Not even family that ran away. The line went dead. Daniel stared at the bike for a long time. 4 years since he'd ridden. 4 years since he'd felt the wind on his face, or the engine beneath him. He'd told himself he didn't deserve it. That men who let boys die shouldn't feel freedom. But his mother was bleeding, and some things were bigger than guilt. He threw his leg over the seat, turned the key. The Harley roared to life. Daniel Sullivan hadn't been Ghost in 8 years, hadn't been anything but a shadow. A man running from his own reflection. Tonight, Ghost was riding home. Margaret sat by her window at 2 a.m., ice on her lip, bandage above her eye, watching the empty road like she'd done every night for 8 years. He wasn't coming. She knew that. Daniel had made his choice the night he left, the night he'd looked at her with those haunted eyes and said words that still destroyed her. I can't be here anymore, Ma. I can't look at you without seeing what I've become. You're my son. That's enough. No, it's not. And he'd ridden into the darkness. 8 years of silence, 8 years of unanswered prayers. Now she was dying by inches in a town that had forgotten how to fight. Being circled by wolves in expensive suits. Please, Danny, she whispered to the empty road. Just let me see your face one more time. The road stayed dark. The sun rose over Silver Ridge like it was apologizing for something. Margaret was already in the kitchen at 5 a.m., moving slower than usual, her body screaming from yesterday's assault. The bruise above her eye had turned purple overnight. Her wrist was swollen, probably fractured, but she refused to see a doctor, refused to give Marcus Crane the satisfaction of knowing he'd hurt her that badly. Carmen arrived early, with Lily took one look at Margaret's face and started crying. "Mrs. S., you should be in bed. Bed is for people who've given up." "You're hurt. I've been hurt before. I'm still standing." Lily tugged on Margaret's apron. "Grandma Maggie, what happened to your face?" Margaret knelt down, wincing at the pain in her ribs. "I had a little accident, sweetheart, but I'm okay." "Does it hurt?" "Not as much as missing your smile would hurt." Lily threw her arms around Margaret's neck. "I love you, Grandma Maggie." Margaret held her tight. This little girl who'd never known her own father. This little girl who called a stranger grandmother and meant it. "I love you too, baby, more than all the stars." By 10 a.m. the restaurant was half empty. Word had spread. Marcus Crane had marked Sullivan's roadside grill. Anyone who ate there was picking a side. Most people chose the safe side. Henry Castillo was one of the few who showed up. He sat at his usual stool, ordered his usual breakfast, and pretended not to notice the empty seats around him. "You should go, Henry," Margaret said. "Crane's watching." "Let him watch. I've been eating here for 40 years. Not about to stop now." "He'll come after you." "Then he comes after me?" Henry met her eyes. "Some things are worth fighting for, Maggie. You taught me that." At 11:47 a.m., Carmen was wiping down tables when she heard it. A sound. Low. Distant. Like thunder rolling across the desert. She walked to the window. Squinted against the morning sun. "Mrs. S." Margaret looked up from the register. "You should see this." Margaret walked to the window, slowly, her ribs aching with every step. And then she saw them. One motorcycle crested the hill, then 10, then 30. They came in formation. Chrome blazing in the New Mexico sun. Engines shaking the ground like an earthquake. At the front rode a man in black leather, gray in his beard. Eyes locked forward like he could see through walls. The Hell's Angels rolled into Silver Ridge like an army coming home from war. Carmen's phone slipped from her hand. Sweet Jesus. Margaret didn't move. Couldn't move. She knew that sound. Knew it in her bones. In her blood. In every cell of her body. "Mrs. S." Carmen's voice was trembling. "There's got to be 40 of them." Margaret was already walking toward the door. "Mrs. S." She pushed through. Stepped into the light, and there he was, Daniel Sullivan, her Danny, standing in the middle of Main Street, leather jacket, gray beard, 8 years of silence between them. He looked older, broken, tired in ways sleep couldn't fix. But he was here. "Ma." His voice cracked on the word. Margaret walked toward him. Past the motorcycles, past the bikers who parted like she was made of something holy. She stopped in front of her son and slapped him across the face. 40 Hell's Angels went dead silent. 8 years, Margaret's voice shook with fury and love. 8 years without a word. I thought you were dead. I prayed over your picture every single night. Daniel didn't move, didn't defend himself. "I'm sorry, Ma. Sorry." She hit his chest, again, again. "I wrote letters you never answered, left voicemails you never returned. I begged God to bring you back. I know. You know nothing. She was crying now. 50 years of pain pouring out. You left me alone after your father died. After everything. You just left. I know. Then why Daniel? Why did you stay away? He looked at her. This woman who had given him everything, who had loved him when he was unlovable, who had never stopped believing in him even when he'd stopped believing in himself. Because I got Eddie killed. Because every time I looked in the mirror I saw a murderer. Because I thought you'd be better off without me. Better off. Margaret grabbed his face, forced him to look at her. I lost your father to a construction accident. I almost lost you to that motorcycle life. And then I lost you anyway, because you decided my love wasn't enough to stay for. Ma, I don't care what you did. I don't care who you think you are. Her voice broke. You're my son. And I have never stopped loving you. Not for 1 second. Not for one breath. Daniel broke. He fell to his knees in the middle of Main Street, wrapped his arms around his mother, and sobbed like a child. And Margaret held him. Just held him, while 40 Hell's Angels stood guard around them. Hawk watched from his bike. He'd been furious at Daniel for 8 years. Furious at the abandonment, the silence, the cowardice. But watching Ghost, the hardest man he'd ever known, break down in his mother's arms. Something shifted in his chest. Nobody touches her, he said to the man beside him. Nobody threatens her. Nobody even looks at her wrong. And if they do, Hawk smiled. It wasn't a nice smile. Then they find out why we're called angels. Inside the restaurant, Margaret sat Daniel in the booth by the window. Same booth where Marcus Crane had threatened her life 20 hours ago. She put coffee in front of him, watched his hands shake as he lifted the cup. Tell me everything, she said. Ma, everything. So he did. Eddie. The truck. The blood. Holding a dying boy's hand while he begged for his mother. The funeral where Eddie's mother had spit in his face. You were supposed to protect him. Taking off the patch. Riding until the gas ran out. Working anonymous jobs in anonymous towns. Drinking himself to sleep every night because the dreams wouldn't stop. I thought if I stayed away you'd forget about me. You wouldn't have to explain why your son was a failure. A coward, a killer. Margaret listened to every word. Then she reached across the table. Eddie's death wasn't your fault. I was his captain. You were his leader, not God. You can't control drunk drivers. You can't control fate. She squeezed his hands. But you could have controlled whether you stayed or ran. And you ran. I know. Running doesn't kill guilt, Daniel. It feeds it. Turns it into a monster that eats you alive. I know. So stop running. Her voice hardened. You're here now. That's what matters. You face whatever comes. You don't leave again. Not ever. Daniel looked at his mother. 81 years old. Blood still crusted above her eye, and stronger than anyone he'd ever known. I won't leave. I promise. Good. She stood up. Because we've got company. The front door opened. Hawk walked in. 3 angels behind him. They filled the restaurant with leather and scars, and the kind of presence that made ordinary men want to disappear. Hawk looked at Margaret. You must be the mother. And you must be Hawk. She didn't flinch, didn't back down. Daniel says you're the closest thing he has to a brother. He said the same about you. Said you were the toughest woman he ever knew. Margaret smiled. Sit down, coffee's on me. And just like that, the Hells Angels became regulars at Sullivan's Roadside Grill. Word spread fast. By 2 p.m., half the town had driven past the restaurant to see if the rumors were true. They were. 40 Hells Angels eating pancakes, playing with Carmen's daughter, tipping 50% on every order. Henry Castillo sat at the counter shaking his head. Never thought I'd see this. Hell's Angels in Silver Ridge. Times change, Margaret said. Marcus Crane is going to lose his mind. Good. Henry looked at her. Maggie, what exactly are you planning? Margaret's eyes drifted to her son. Daniel sat with Hawk, talking low, planning something. I'm done being afraid, Henry. Done letting men like Crane take whatever they want. And if it goes wrong, she smiled, the same smile she'd given Patrick on their wedding day. Then at least I'll go down swinging. 4:30 p.m. A black SUV pulled up outside Sullivan's roadside grill. Marcus Crane stepped out. He saw the motorcycles, the leather jackets, the Hell's Angels patches. And for the first time in his miserable life, Marcus Crane felt exactly what he'd made countless others feel. Pure, bone-deep fear. Marcus Crane stood frozen beside his SUV for exactly 11 seconds. Long enough for every biker in the parking lot to notice. Long enough for the fear to show on his face before he could hide it. Victor stepped out from the passenger side. Boss, maybe we should come back later. Marcus's jaw tightened. He straightened his tie, fixed his expression into something that looked almost like confidence. I don't run from anybody. There's 40 of them. I don't care if there's 400. Marcus started walking toward the restaurant. His legs felt like concrete, but he forced them forward. This was his town, his territory. Some bikers in leather weren't going to change that. But his hands were shaking. And everyone could see it. Inside the restaurant, Hawk set down his coffee cup. We've got company. Daniel turned toward the window, watched Marcus Crane walking across the parking lot like a man trying to convince himself he wasn't terrified. That's him. That's him. Margaret's voice was steady, but her hands gripped the edge of the counter. Marcus Crane. The man who thinks he owns everything. Daniel stood up slowly. Stay here, Ma. Daniel, stay here. He walked toward the door. Hawk followed. Then 3 more angels. Then 5 more. By the time Marcus Crane reached the entrance, 12 Hell's Angels were standing between him and the restaurant. Marcus stopped, looked at the wall of leather and muscle blocking his path. Gentlemen, he forced a smile. Didn't know we had tourists in town. Nobody smiled back. Daniel stepped forward. You Marcus Crane. Who's asking, the son of the woman you hit yesterday? The color drained from Marcus's face, just for a second. Just enough for Daniel to see. I don't know what you're talking about. Really? Daniel pulled out his phone, pressed play on the video, turned it around so Marcus could see himself slapping an 81-year-old woman to the ground. 48 hours. Sign or I'll bury you next to your husband. That's what you said, right? Marcus's eyes darted to Victor, to Santos, back to the wall of bikers. That video is taken out of context. Context. Daniel laughed, cold, empty. You hit my mother. You threatened to kill her. What context am I missing? Look whatever she told you. She didn't tell me anything. She didn't have to. I saw it with my own eyes. Daniel stepped closer. Close enough that Marcus could smell the road on him. The leather. The gasoline. The 8 years of rage barely contained beneath the surface. Here's what's going to happen. You're going to leave my mother alone. You're going to leave this restaurant alone. You're going to forget you ever heard the name Margaret Sullivan. Or what? Daniel smiled. It was the most terrifying thing Marcus had ever seen. Or I'll show you what happens when you hurt someone a Hell's Angel loves. Marcus swallowed hard. His voice came out weaker than he wanted. You can't threaten me. I have lawyers. I have connections. You have nothing. Hawk stepped forward. You have money. You have hired muscle. But right now you're standing in front of 40 men who would die for that old lady in there. He leaned in. How many of your boys would die for you? Marcus looked at Victor. Victor looked away. That told him everything he needed to know. This isn't over. Marcus backed toward his SUV. You think you can come into my town and... Your town? Daniel cut him off. My mother's been here 50 years. She buried her husband here, raised her son here. This was never your town, Crane. You just convinced yourself it was. Marcus climbed into the SUV, slammed the door. The engine roared to life. He rolled down the window one last time. You'll regret this. All of you. Maybe. Daniel's voice was ice. But not as much as you'll regret touching my mother. The SUV peeled out of the parking lot, kicking up dust and gravel. Daniel watched it disappear over the hill. That was too easy, Hawk said quietly. I know. He'll be back, more men, more lawyers, more problems. I know. Hawk put a hand on Daniel's shoulder. What's your play, brother? Daniel turned back toward the restaurant. Through the window he could see his mother watching him, her eyes filled with something he hadn't seen in 8 years. Hope. I'm going to finish what I should have finished a long time ago. Margaret was waiting when Daniel walked back inside. You didn't have to do that. Yes, I did. He's dangerous, Daniel. He has powerful friends. So do I. She touched his arm, felt the tension in his muscles, the barely contained rage. I don't want you going back to prison. I'm not going to prison. Promise me. Daniel looked at his mother, at the bruise still visible above her eye, at the cut on her lip that was just starting to heal. I promise I won't do anything stupid, but I'm not making any promises about him. Carmen appeared from the back, Lily on her hip. Mrs. S., there's more bikes coming. Everyone turned toward the window. Over the hill, dust clouds rose. Engines rumbled like approaching thunder. 1 bike became 5. 5 became 15. 15 became 30. Hawk walked to the door, squinting against the setting sun. Well, I'll be damned. Who is it? Daniel asked. Phoenix chapter, El Paso chapter. Looks like... Hawk paused, counting. At least 60 more brothers. Daniel stared. You called them, I called a few. Word spreads. Hawk turned back, a rare smile on his weathered face. Nobody touches family, remember, and brother, your mama just became family to every angel in the Southwest. Within an hour, Main Street looked like a motorcycle convention. 93 Hell's Angels filled the parking lots, the side streets, the empty lots around the restaurant. They came from Phoenix, El Paso, Albuquerque, Tucson. Some drove through the night. Some left jobs without explanation. Some kissed their wives goodbye and said they'd be back when the job was done. Word had spread like wildfire through the biker network. Margaret Sullivan, 81 years old, beaten by a thug who thought he owned the world. Her son was Ghost, the legendary road captain who disappeared 8 years ago, and he was back. That was enough. That was more than enough. Margaret stood on the restaurant steps, watching these rough men transform her parking lot into a sea of chrome and leather. I don't understand, she said quietly to Daniel. They don't even know me. They know what matters. Daniel's voice was thick. They know you raised a brother. They know you stood your ground when everyone else ran. That's enough for them. But I didn't do anything special. Ma. Daniel took her hands. You refused to break. You looked a monster in the eye and told him no. That's the most special thing in the world. An older biker approached, 60 years old if he was a day. gray beard down to his chest, arms covered in faded tattoos. Mrs. Sullivan. His voice was surprisingly gentle. I'm Grizz, Phoenix chapter. Hello, Grizz. Ma'am, I rode 6 hours to get here. Didn't stop except for gas. He removed his sunglasses, revealing kind eyes. My own mother passed 4 years ago. Sweetest woman who ever lived. Someone hurt her, I would have burned the world down. Margaret didn't know what to say. What I'm trying to tell you, ma'am, is that you've got 90 brothers now, and we don't leave family behind. Tears rolled down Margaret's cheeks. She stepped forward and hugged this stranger. This rough, tattooed stranger who'd driven through the night for a woman he'd never met. Thank you, she whispered. Grizz patted her back awkwardly. No thanks needed, ma'am. This is what we do. By nightfall, the restaurant had been transformed. Bikers took shifts, standing guard outside. Others helped Carmen serve food to the growing crowd. Some fixed broken equipment Margaret hadn't been able to afford to repair in years. Henry Castillo sat at his usual stool, watching in amazement. In 60 years, I've never seen anything like this. Neither have I. Margaret refilled his coffee. And I've seen a lot. Crane must be losing his mind right now. Good. Henry lowered his voice. Maggie, you know this isn't over, right? Crane's got connections all the way to Santa Fe. Hell, some say he's got friends in the state capitol. Let him have his friends. I've got mine. These friends might not be enough. Margaret looked around the restaurant, at the bikers laughing and eating, at her son talking strategy with Hawk, at Carmen smiling for the first time in months. Henry, for 50 years I've served this town, served people who never once stood up for me, who watched Marcus Crane walk all over everyone and never said a word. She met his eyes. These men drove hundreds of miles for a stranger. They left their families, their jobs, their lives. For me. She set down the coffee pot. So yes, maybe it's not enough. Maybe Marcus Crane wins in the end. But at least I'll know what real loyalty looks like before I go. At 10 p.m., Daniel found his mother alone in the back office. She was holding an old photograph. Him at 18. Graduation day. Before the leather. Before the tattoos. Before everything went wrong. You were so young, she said without looking up. I was stupid. You were finding yourself. That's not stupid, that's human. Daniel sat across from her. The same chair he'd sat in as a boy, listening to his father talk about hard work and integrity, and never backing down from what's right. Ma, I need to ask you something. Anything. Why didn't you sell? You could have taken the money, moved somewhere safe, started over. Margaret set down the photograph. Your father proposed to me in this restaurant. Did you know that? No. We were 22. Broke. Scared. He got down on one knee right there by the jukebox and asked me to build a life with him. Her eyes grew distant. We poured everything into this place. Every penny. Every dream. Every hope we had for the future. She looked at her son. When your father died, I wanted to die too. I wanted to sell everything and disappear. But then I realized this restaurant isn't just a building. It's not just a business. It's him. It's every memory I have of him. Every laugh. Every fight. Every quiet morning drinking coffee together before the customers arrived. Her voice broke. If I sell this restaurant, I lose the last piece of Patrick I have left. And I won't do that. Not for Marcus Crane. Not for anyone. Daniel reached across and took her hand. I wish I'd been here, Ma, when Dad died, when you needed me. You were dealing with your own demons. That's not an excuse. No, it's not, she squeezed his hand. But you're here now. That's what matters. I'm going to fix this. I promise. I know you will. She smiled. You're your father's son. Outside engines roared to life. Daniel and Margaret rushed to the front of the restaurant. A convoy of black SUVs was approaching from the east. 4 vehicles. Moving fast. Hawk was already barking orders. "Everyone up! We've got incoming!" The bikers scrambled to their feet, formed a line in front of the restaurant. Nearly 100 men standing shoulder to shoulder. The SUVs stopped 50 feet away. Doors opened. Marcus Crane stepped out first. Behind him, at least 20 men in tactical gear. Private security. The kind of men who'd done tours in Iraq and Afghanistan before discovering that violence paid better in the private sector. Marcus walked forward, flanked by 4 of his biggest enforcers. "Impressive," he called out. "You've got yourself an army." "So do you." Daniel stepped forward to meet him. "But mine doesn't get paid by the hour." "You think this is funny? I think you're scared. I think you came here with your rented soldiers because you can't handle this yourself." Marcus's eye twitched. "I came to make one final offer." "We're not interested." "You haven't heard it yet." "Don't need to." Marcus raised his voice so everyone could hear. $150,000 cash. Tonight. Margaret Sullivan signs the papers and this all goes away. No more threats, no more problems. $150,000. And everyone goes home happy. Murmurs rippled through the crowd. That was a lot of money. Margaret pushed through the line of bikers before anyone could stop her. "Mrs. Sullivan." Hawk tried to grab her arm. She shook him off, walked right up to Marcus Crane. $150,000. "That's right," Marcus smiled. "More money than you've ever seen. Enough to retire somewhere nice. Florida, California, anywhere you want." Margaret nodded slowly. "That's a generous offer." "I'm a generous man. You're a man who hit a 79-year-old woman in the face and threatened to bury her in an unmarked grave." Her voice carried across the parking lot. "You think money erases that?" The smile faded from Marcus's lips. "You think I care about money? My husband died in a construction accident because his company cut safety costs to save a few dollars. I've seen what men like you do, how you buy and sell people like they're nothing." She stepped closer. "I've lived in this town for 50 years. I've served thousands of meals, listened to thousands of stories. I've watched children grow up and have children of their own. This restaurant isn't just a building to me, Mr. Crane. It's my life. And you can't buy someone's life. Not for $150,000, not for $1 million, not for all the money in the world." She turned her back on him. "Now get off my property." Marcus's face went red, then purple. "You stupid old—" Daniel was there in an instant, his hand around Marcus's throat before anyone could react. "Finish that sentence," Daniel whispered. "Please." Marcus's security moved forward. So did the bikers. For 10 seconds, the world balanced on the edge of a knife. Then Hawk stepped between the groups. "Everyone stand down, now." The bikers held. The security team hesitated. Hawk looked at Marcus's men. "Gentlemen, I'm going to give you some advice. Free of charge. You're getting paid, what, $500 a day, $1,000, whatever it is. It's not enough to die for." He gestured at the bikers behind him. "We're not getting paid at all. We're here because that woman in there is family. And we don't have a price. So you need to ask yourselves a question. How much is Marcus Crane's real estate deal worth to you? Because I promise you, the moment this goes sideways, we're not going to stop until every single one of you is in the ground." The security team exchanged looks. Their leader, a burly man with a military buzz cut, stepped forward. "We were hired for security, Mr. Crane, not war." "Smart man." Hawk nodded. The leader turned to Marcus. "We're done here." "What you can't—" "Contract says protection, not suicide missions." He signaled to his men. "Pack it up. We're leaving." Marcus watched in disbelief as his 20 hired soldiers climbed back into their vehicles and drove away, leaving him alone with Victor and Santos against 93 Hell's Angels. Daniel released his grip on Marcus's throat. "Looks like your army just quit." Marcus stumbled backward. His face was pale. His hands were shaking. "This isn't over." "You keep saying that." "I have lawyers. I have judges. You have nothing." Daniel's voice was calm. Terrifyingly calm. "You had money and fear. That's all you ever had. And now everyone knows it." Marcus backed toward his SUV. Victor and Santos were already inside, engine running. "I'll destroy you. All of you. Goodbye, Marcus." The SUV peeled away into the darkness, and for the first time in months, Silver Ridge was quiet. But Daniel knew it wasn't over. Men like Marcus Crane didn't give up. They didn't accept defeat. They schemed and plotted and waited for the perfect moment to strike. This was just the beginning. At midnight, Daniel sat alone on the restaurant's roof. Below him, bikers slept in tents and on bedrolls. A few stood guard, cigarettes glowing in the darkness. Hawk climbed up the ladder and sat beside him. "Can't sleep. Never could. Not since Eddie." They sat in silence for a while. "You know he forgave you," Hawk said finally. "Eddie, before he died." Daniel's jaw tightened. "Don't. He told me Ghost, the week before that run. Said if anything ever happened to him, we shouldn't blame you. Said you were the best captain he'd ever ridden with." "He was 23 years old. And he knew the risks. We all do. He shouldn't have been on that run. I should have left him behind. You couldn't have known. I should have known." Daniel's voice cracked. "That's what captains do. They protect their men. They make the hard calls. They're human." Hawk cut him off. "They make mistakes. They live with those mistakes, but they don't run from them." Daniel was quiet for a long time. "I've been running for 8 years. I know. I don't know how to stop." Hawk looked at him. This man he'd ridden with for 20 years. This brother who'd saved his life more times than he could count. "You stop by staying, by facing what scares you, by being there for the people who need you." He nodded toward the restaurant below. "That woman in there has needed you for 8 years. She never stopped hoping you'd come back, never stopped praying for you." "I know. So stop running. Be her son again, not the ghost of who you used to be." Daniel wiped his eyes. Rough. Angry at himself for the tears. "What if I can't? Then fake it until you can." Hawk stood up. "That's what the rest of us do." He started toward the ladder, then stopped. "One more thing. Eddie's mother. She's still in Las Cruces. Still goes to his grave every Sunday." Daniel's whole body went rigid. "She's never blamed you. Not once. She blames the drunk driver who ran that red light. She's been waiting 8 years for you to come talk to her, to tell her about his last ride, about the man he'd become." "I can't. You can, and you will. After this is done." Hawk disappeared down the ladder. Daniel sat alone under the stars, thinking about all the people he'd failed. His mother. Eddie. Eddie's mother. Himself. But maybe it wasn't too late to make things right. At 3 a.m., Margaret woke to the sound of breaking glass. She sat up in bed, heart pounding. More sounds outside. Behind the restaurant. She grabbed her robe and rushed to the window. Flames. The storage shed behind the restaurant was on fire. "Daniel!" she screamed. "Daniel!" Within seconds, the entire camp was awake. Bikers rushed toward the flames with fire extinguishers, buckets of water, anything they could find. Daniel burst through the back door. "Ma, get back inside. The shed, your father's tools, his workbench. I know, stay here." He ran toward the fire. The shed was fully engulfed now. 45 years of memories. Patrick Sullivan's tools. His first workbench. The rocking chair he'd made for Margaret on their 25th anniversary. All of it burning. Grizz appeared beside Daniel. "We can't save it." "I know." "Arson. Had to be Crane. He's sending a message." Daniel watched the flames consume everything his father had built. Everything his mother had saved for 45 years. And something inside him went cold. "He wants a message." Daniel's voice was barely human. "I'll give him a message. Ghost, get me his address." "That's not how we handle things." "Get me his address, now." Grizz grabbed his arm. "Brother, if you go after him tonight, everything we've built here falls apart. The law comes down on us. Your mother loses the restaurant anyway. Is that what you want?" Daniel's chest heaved. His fists clenched so hard his knuckles went white. "He's hurting her, over and over, and I can't stop it. We will stop it, but not like this." Grizz's voice was calm, steady. "We do this right, or we don't do it at all. That's the code." Daniel looked back at the restaurant. His mother stood in the doorway watching 45 years of memories burn. And she wasn't crying. She was standing tall, back straight, head high, refusing to break. Daniel took a breath, then another. "Okay, we do this right. Good. Now help me put out this fire." By dawn, the shed was nothing but ashes. Margaret stood before the smoking ruins. Daniel beside her. "I'm sorry, Ma. Dad's tools, all of it." "They're just things, Daniel." Her voice was surprisingly steady. "Things can be replaced. People can't." But his workbench, he built that with his own hands. "Those hands are gone now. Have been for 15 years. She turned to look at her son. "But you're here. You came back. That's worth more than any workbench." Daniel couldn't speak. The lump in his throat was too large. "Marcus Crane wants me to give up," Margaret continued. "He wants me scared. He wants me running. That's how men like him win, by making people believe they have no choice." She reached up and touched her son's face. "I spent 8 years waiting for you, praying for you, refusing to believe you were gone forever. If I can survive that, I can survive a burned shed." "Ma, we're going to beat him, Daniel. Not with fists, not with fire. We're going to beat him by refusing to give up, by standing our ground, by showing this town that good people can still win." She smiled. "That's what your father would have wanted. That's what I want. And if you're truly his son, that's what you want too." Daniel pulled his mother into his arms. "I am his son," he whispered, "and I'm yours, and I'm not going anywhere." Behind them, 93 Hell's Angels stood watching, and every single one of them knew that Marcus Crane had just made the biggest mistake of his life. The sun rose over Silver Ridge like it was apologizing for the night before. Smoke still drifted from the ruins of the shed. The smell of burned wood and melted metal hung in the air, but Margaret was already inside the restaurant brewing coffee like nothing had happened. Daniel watched her from the doorway. "You should rest, Ma. Rest is for people who've given up." She didn't look at him, just kept measuring grounds into the filter. "I've got a restaurant to run. The shed is gone. Standing around crying about it won't bring it back." Daniel walked over and took the coffee scoop from her hands. "Ma, stop." She finally looked at him. Her eyes were red, tired, but there was no defeat in them. "I cried last night," she said quietly, "after everyone went to sleep. I cried until I couldn't breathe. Your father's things, 45 years of memories, gone in an hour." "I know. But then I remembered something Patrick told me the night before he died. He said, 'Maggie, the things we own don't matter. The people we love do. Everything else is just stuff.'" She took back the scoop and continued making coffee. "Marcus Crane burned stuff. He didn't burn me. He didn't burn you. He didn't burn what matters." Daniel didn't have words. His mother had always been strong. But this was something else. This was steel forged in fire. "Now help me open this restaurant. We've got 90 hungry bikers out there." By 8 a.m., Sullivan's roadside grill was packed. Bikers filled every booth, every stool, every inch of standing room. They ate pancakes and eggs and bacon like men who hadn't seen food in weeks. And they paid. Every single one of them. Carmen moved through the chaos with Lily on her hip, taking orders, refilling coffee, somehow managing to smile despite the exhaustion. "Mrs. S., we're running low on eggs." "I called the supplier. They're sending extra." "And bacon?" "That too." Carmen paused. "How are you paying for all this?" Margaret smiled. "I'm not. The Phoenix chapter is." "What?" "Grizz came to me this morning. Said the club's covering all food costs until this is over. Every penny." Carmen's eyes filled with tears. "These people, I know, sweetheart, I know." At 9:30, Henry Castillo burst through the front door. "Maggie, you need to see this." Everyone turned. Henry was out of breath, waving his phone. "Town meeting. Emergency session. Starts in an hour." "About what?" "About you, about them." He gestured at the bikers. "Marcus Crane filed a complaint. Says you're harboring a criminal gang. Says the bikers are intimidating local businesses." Hawk stood up from his booth. "Criminal gang. We haven't broken a single law." "Doesn't matter. Crane's got the mayor in his pocket. Half the council, too." Daniel walked over. "What happens at this meeting? They vote. If it passes, they can declare you a public nuisance. Force the bikers to disperse." Henry looked at Margaret. "And if they leave—" He didn't need to finish. Everyone knew what would happen if the protection disappeared. Margaret untied her apron. "Then I better be at that meeting." "Ma, you don't have to." "Yes, I do." She looked at her son. "I've been hiding in this restaurant for 50 years, Daniel. Letting other people fight my battles. Letting other people decide my future." She straightened her shoulders. "Not anymore." The town hall was standing room only. Every resident of Silver Ridge had shown up. Farmers, shop owners, teachers, mechanics. People who'd never attended a council meeting in their lives were crammed into the small building. At the front, behind a long table, sat the 5 council members. Mayor Tom Bradley, 62, owned half the commercial property in town, had taken money from Marcus Crane for 3 years running. Councilwoman Sarah Chen, 55, former teacher, the only member who'd voted against selling public land to Crane Development. Councilman Robert Hayes, 48, insurance agent, owed Marcus Crane $50,000 in gambling debts. Councilwoman Patricia Wells, 60, retired nurse, scared of her own shadow. Councilman David Ruiz, 35, youngest member. Ran on a platform of transparency and ethics. Nobody knew which way he'd vote. Marcus Crane sat in the front row, flanked by 2 lawyers in expensive suits. He looked like a man who'd already won. Margaret walked in with Daniel on one side and Hawk on the other. The room went silent. She made her way to the front, passing neighbors who wouldn't meet her eyes. People she'd served breakfast to for decades. People who'd celebrated birthdays and anniversaries in her restaurant. None of them spoke. She took a seat in the front row, directly across from Marcus Crane. He smiled at her. That same cold reptilian smile. "Mrs. Sullivan, glad you could make it. Wouldn't miss it." Mayor Bradley banged his gavel. "This emergency session is now in order. We're here to address concerns raised by Mr. Vincent Harmon regarding a potential public safety threat." He nodded at Marcus, who stood and approached the podium. "Ladies and gentlemen of the council, residents of Silver Ridge." Marcus's voice was smooth as oil. 3 days ago, nearly 100 members of the Hells Angels motorcycle gang descended on our peaceful town. They've occupied public streets, intimidated local businesses, created an atmosphere of fear and lawlessness. Murmurs from the crowd. "I have documentation of traffic violations, noise complaints, and threatening behavior. I have witnesses who will testify that these gang members have harassed citizens simply trying to go about their daily lives." He pulled out a folder thick with papers. "This is not about Mrs. Margaret Sullivan, who I'm sure is a lovely woman. This is about public safety, about protecting our community from criminal elements who have no business being here." He set the folder on the council table. "I'm asking this council to declare the Hells Angels' presence a public nuisance and order them to disperse immediately. If they refuse, I'm asking for authorization to bring in state police to remove them by force." He returned to his seat, looking satisfied. Mayor Bradley cleared his throat. "Thank you, Mr. Crane. Is there anyone who wishes to speak in opposition?" Margaret stood. "I do." The room shifted. People craned their necks to see. Margaret walked to the podium. She was small, frail, her voice barely carried beyond the first few rows. But when she spoke, everyone listened. "My name is Margaret Sullivan. Most of you know me. I've been running Sullivan's Roadside Grill for 50 years. I've served coffee to your parents, your children, your grandchildren. I've been part of this community longer than many of you have been alive." She paused. 3 days ago, Mr. Crane came into my restaurant and offered to buy my property. I refused, so he hit me. Gasps from the crowd. "He slapped me across the face so hard I fell to the floor. Then he threatened to kill me if I didn't sign his papers." "That's a lie." Marcus was on his feet. I have video." The room went dead silent. "My waitress recorded the entire thing. The slap, the threats, everything." She looked at the council. "I can play it right now if you'd like." Mayor Bradley's face went pale. "That won't be necessary." "I think it is." Sarah Chen leaned forward. "If there's evidence of assault, we need to see it. This is not relevant to the matter at hand." Marcus's lawyer interjected. "We're discussing public safety, not a man who beats elderly women in public is absolutely relevant to public safety." Sarah's voice was ice. "Play the video, Mrs. Sullivan." Margaret connected her phone to the room's display system, and for the next 90 seconds, the entire town of Silver Ridge watched Marcus Crane slap a 79-year-old woman to the ground. They heard his threats, saw him grab her wrist, watched him laugh as she bled on the floor. By the time it ended, half the room was crying. The other half was staring at Marcus Crane with murder in their eyes. "That video is doctored," Marcus sputtered. "It's taken out of context. It's—" "Mr. Crane!" Sarah Chen's voice cut through his protests. "I've known Margaret Sullivan for 30 years. She's the most honest person I've ever met. Are you really going to sit there and call her a liar? I'm saying, because if you are, I have a few questions about the $50,000 to $1,000 you donated to Mayor Bradley's re-election campaign, and the property deals you've made with Councilman Hayes, and the threats you've made to every business owner on Main Street who refused to sell." The room exploded. People were on their feet, shouting. Some at Marcus, some at the council, some just releasing years of pent-up frustration. Mayor Bradley banged his gavel frantically. "Order! Order!" Nobody listened. Daniel watched the chaos with growing concern. This was spiraling out of control. Then he saw something that made his blood run cold. Sheriff Roy Dawkins was walking toward the front of the room, hand on his holster, and he was looking directly at Margaret. Daniel moved. He pushed through the crowd, reaching his mother just as Sheriff Dawkins arrived. "Mrs. Sullivan." The sheriff's voice was flat. "Official. I need you to come with me." "On what charge?" "Filing a false police report, inciting public unrest, harboring known criminals." "You can't be serious." "I'm dead serious." Dawkins reached for his handcuffs. "You're under arrest." "No." Daniel stepped between them. "You touch her, and I swear to God, you threatening an officer." Dawkins's hand moved to his weapon. "Because that's another charge I can add." The room had gone quiet. Everyone watching. This was it. The moment Marcus had been waiting for. Get Margaret arrested. Get Daniel arrested. Remove the threat legally cleanly with the full backing of the law. Hawk appeared at Daniel's side. Then Grizz. Then a dozen more angels. Sheriff Dawkins's confidence wavered. His hand trembled on his gun. "Stand down," Dawkins ordered. "All of you. Or what?" Hawk's voice was calm. Deadly calm. "You going to shoot 100 people in front of the whole town? I'll call for backup. Call whoever you want. By the time they get here, this will be over." The standoff stretched. Seconds feeling like hours. Then a voice cut through the tension. "Roy." Everyone turned. An old woman was pushing through the crowd. 80 years old, if she was a day. White hair. Weathered face. Eyes that had seen everything. "Mrs. Dawkins." The sheriff's voice cracked. "Mom, what are you doing here?" "I'm doing what I should have done years ago." She walked right up to her son, looked him in the eye. "I didn't raise you to be a bully's lapdog." "Mom, your father was a good man, an honest man. He wore that badge for 30 years and never once took a bribe, never once looked the other way when someone was being hurt." Her voice broke. "And now you're going to arrest Margaret Sullivan, a woman who brought me soup every day for 3 months when I had pneumonia, who sat with me at your father's funeral when you were too busy working. I'm just doing my job." "Your job is to protect people, not persecute them." She grabbed his arm. "Roy, look at me. Really look at me. Is this who you want to be? Is this what you want your legacy to be?" Sheriff Dawkins stood frozen. His hand slowly dropped from his weapon. The entire room held its breath. His voice was barely a whisper. "I don't know how to stop." "You stop by choosing. Right here. Right now." His mother's eyes were fierce. "You choose who you're going to be. Your father's son, or Marcus Crane's puppet." Something broke in Roy Dawkins's face. 7 years of corruption. 7 years of looking the other way. 7 years of slowly losing his soul, one compromise at a time. And his mother standing in front of him, giving him one last chance. He turned to Margaret. "Mrs. Sullivan, He couldn't finish. "It's okay, Roy." Margaret's voice was gentle. "I knew your father. He was a good man. And somewhere in there you are too." Dawkins looked at Marcus Crane. Marcus's face was purple with rage. "Roy, do your job. Arrest her. Now." The sheriff straightened his spine. For the first time in years, he looked like a man instead of a shadow. "Mr. Crane, based on the video evidence presented today, I'm placing you under arrest for assault and battery." "What? You have the right to remain silent." You can't do this. I own you. I own this hole. Anything you say can and will be used against you in a court of law." When two deputies moved forward, uncertainty on their faces. "Do it," Dawkins ordered. "Cuff him." Marcus struggled as the handcuffs clicked around his wrists. "You're finished, Roy. All of you. I have lawyers, I have connections, I'll destroy every single— Get him out of here." The deputies dragged Marcus Crane out of the town hall. His screams echoed through the building, getting fainter and fainter until they disappeared entirely. The room was silent. Then someone started clapping. One person. Then 2. Then 10. Then the entire room. Margaret stood at the podium, tears streaming down her face as the town of Silver Ridge rose to its feet and cheered. Daniel appeared beside her, took her hand. "You did it, Ma." "We did it?" "No," he shook his head. "That was all you." Sheriff Dawkins approached them, hat in his hands. "Mrs. Sullivan, I don't know how to apologize for what I've done, the things I've let happen in this town." "You don't need to apologize to me, Roy." Margaret touched his arm. "You need to apologize to yourself, and then you need to start making it right." "I don't know if I can." "You already did. The hardest part is choosing to change. Everything else is just work." Dawkins nodded slowly. "My mother. She's right. My father would be ashamed of me." "Then make him proud. Starting now." The meeting officially dissolved into chaos after that. Council members scrambling to distance themselves from Marcus Crane. Residents demanding investigations. Reporters who'd somehow gotten wind of the story pushing through the crowd. Daniel pulled his mother outside, away from the noise. "We need to talk about what happens next." "What do you mean?" "Crane's arrested, but he'll make bail. His lawyers will get him out by tonight." Margaret nodded. "And when he does, he'll be angrier than ever. He's got nothing left to lose." Daniel looked at the bikers gathering in the parking lot, at Hawk coordinating with the chapter presidents, at the small army that had formed around one old woman's refusal to give up. "We finish this tonight." By 6 p.m., Marcus Crane was out on bail. His lawyers had worked miracles, reduced charges, sympathetic judge, $100,000, and he walked out of the county jail like nothing had happened. But something had happened. The video had gone viral. Millions of views. National news coverage. "Elderly widow stands up to corrupt developer" was trending on every platform. And the comments were brutal. People calling for boycotts of Crane development, investors pulling out, business partners distancing themselves. In 3 hours, Marcus Crane's empire had started to crumble. He sat in his hotel room watching his life fall apart on a laptop screen. Victor stood by the door. "Boss, maybe we should get out of town. Regroup somewhere." "I'm not running." "Sir, there's 90 bikers out there who want you dead. The sheriff turned on you. The whole town—" "I said I'm not running." Marcus swept the laptop off the desk. It shattered against the wall. "That old woman, that worthless, stubborn old woman. She ruined everything. Maybe if we just— No more maybes, no more deals, no more playing nice." Marcus's eyes were wild, desperate. "I want her gone. Her son gone. That whole restaurant burned to the ground." "Sir, with all due respect, that's suicide. The bikers. Then we need more men. Call everyone. Every contact. Every favor we're owed. I want 50 guys here by midnight." "Boss, do it." Victor pulled out his phone, but his hands were shaking. He'd seen Marcus angry before. He'd seen him violent, but he'd never seen him like this. This was a man with nothing left to lose. And those were the most dangerous kind. At 9 p.m., Daniel gathered the chapter presidents in the restaurant's back office. Hawk, Grizz, Demon from the El Paso chapter, Razor from Albuquerque. 8 men who'd earned their patches through blood and loyalty. "Crane's planning something," Daniel said. "I can feel it." "Let him plan." Razor cracked his knuckles. "We've got 100 men. He's desperate. Desperate men do stupid things. So what's the play?" Daniel looked at each man in turn. "We end this tonight. Not with fists, not with fire. We end it by exposing everything he's done." "How?" "Carmen's been doing some digging. Crane's got files, records, everything from bribery payments to forged documents. It's all stored at his office in Santa Fe." Grizz leaned forward. "You want us to steal them? I want us to make sure the right people see them. FBI, State Attorney General, news networks, everything." "That's not exactly legal. Neither is beating old women and burning their property." Silence around the table. Hawk spoke first. "I'm in." "Me too." Grizz. One by one, they all nodded. "Good." Daniel pulled out a map. "Here's what we're going to do." At 11:47 p.m., 2 things happened simultaneously. In Santa Fe, a team of bikers walked into the offices of Crane Development. They didn't break anything, didn't hurt anyone. They simply downloaded every file on every computer and walked out before security even knew they were there. And in Silver Ridge, Marcus Crane's convoy arrived. 12 vehicles, 53 men, armed with bats' chains and at least a dozen firearms. They parked on the edge of town, engines idling. Marcus stepped out of the lead SUV. He looked at Main Street, at the rows of motorcycles, at the bikers standing guard outside the restaurant. "Burn it all," he said. "Every last inch of it." His men moved forward, and the night exploded. It wasn't a fight. It was a war. Bikers poured out of every building, every alley, every shadow. They met Crane's men in the middle of Main Street. The sound was deafening. Fists on flesh, metal on metal. Screaming and cursing and the roar of engines, Daniel fought like a man possessed, every punch carrying 8 years of guilt, every blow landing with the weight of everything he'd failed to protect. He found Victor in the chaos, the man who'd stood by while Marcus hit his mother. "Remember me." Victor swung. Daniel ducked, countered with an uppercut that lifted Victor off his feet. "That's for my mother." He hit him again, and again. "That's for everyone you've ever hurt." Victor crumpled to the ground, unconscious. Daniel moved on. Hawk was surrounded by 3 of Crane's men. Daniel broke through, taking one down with a tackle, another with an elbow to the jaw. "Thanks, brother. Don't mention it." They fought back to back, just like the old days. Before Eddie. Before everything fell apart. And despite the chaos, despite the violence, Daniel felt something he hadn't felt in 8 years. Home. In the middle of the battle, Marcus Crane reached the restaurant. The front door was locked. He kicked it in. The place was empty. Tables overturned. Chairs scattered. "Margaret," his voice echoed off the walls. "I know you're here. Come out and face me." No response. He pulled out a pistol, started walking toward the back. "You think you've won? You think you can destroy everything I've built and just walk away?" He kicked open the office door. Empty. The kitchen. Empty. The storage room. Empty. Then he heard it. A voice. Soft. Calm. "I'm right here, Mr. Crane." He spun around. Margaret stood in the doorway. Alone. Unarmed. "You should have run, old woman." "I'm done running. I've been done for a long time." He raised the pistol, aimed at her heart. "Any last words?" Margaret didn't flinch, didn't beg, just looked at this broken man with something that might have been pity. "I forgive you." Marcus froze. "What? I forgive you for hitting me, for threatening me, for all of it. You forgive me." He laughed, high and wild and unstable. "I'm about to kill you, and you forgive me. Forgiveness isn't about you, Mr. Crane. It's about me. I won't die with hate in my heart. I won't give you that power." "You're insane." "No, I'm free." She took a step toward him. "You've spent your whole life taking from people, hurting people. And where has it gotten you, standing in a restaurant at midnight pointing a gun at a grandmother? Is this really how you want your story to end?" The gun trembled in his hand. "Shut up. You could have been different. You could have built something real, something that mattered. Instead, you chose fear. You chose cruelty. And now you're alone. I said shut up. Your parents, your friends, your partners, everyone who ever cared about you. Where are they now?" Marcus's face crumpled. "They're gone," Margaret said softly. "All of them. Because you pushed them away. Because you thought power was more important than love. You don't know anything about me. I know that nobody drove through the night to stand beside you. Nobody risked their life to protect you, because you never gave anyone a reason to." Marcus's hand was shaking violently now, tears streaming down his face. It's not too late." Margaret reached out, slowly, gently. "You can still choose differently. You can still be someone worth saving." For a long moment, nothing moved. Then Marcus Crane dropped the gun. It clattered to the floor. He fell to his knees beside it. And he wept. 20 minutes later, the police arrived. State troopers, FBI, a dozen agencies responding to anonymous tips about corruption assault and attempted murder. They found Marcus Crane sitting on the floor of Sullivan's roadside grill, handcuffed, broken, confessing to everything. They found his men scattered across Main Street, restrained by bikers who hadn't thrown a single unnecessary punch. And they found Margaret Sullivan sitting at her usual table drinking coffee, like it was just another Tuesday morning. Daniel rushed in the moment he saw the police cars. "Ma, are you—" "I'm fine, sweetheart." "He had a gun. Carmen said he had a gun." "He did. And you just talked to him." Margaret smiled. "Sometimes that's all people need, baby. Someone to really talk to them, to see them." Daniel stared at his mother. This woman he thought he knew. This woman who kept surprising him. "You're unbelievable." "I'm tired is what I am." She stood up slowly. "Help me close up the restaurant. We've got a long day tomorrow." Outside, bikers were shaking hands with state troopers, giving statements, laughing with relief. The battle was over. But something bigger had just begun. At 3 a.m., as the last police car pulled away, Hawk approached Daniel. "Got word from Santa Fe. The files are in the right hands." "How bad is it for Crane?" "Career-ending, prison-insuring, life-destroying bad." "Good." Hawk was quiet for a moment. "You know, I've been writing for 35 years. Seen a lot of things. Done a lot of things. And I've never seen anything like tonight. My mother alone with a gun to her head, and she forgave him. Just like that." He shook his head. "She talked him down without lifting a finger. That's who she is. That's who she raised you to be." Hawk put a hand on Daniel's shoulder. "You ran away because you thought you weren't worthy of her. But brother, you are her. The same strength, the same heart. You just forgot for a while." Daniel felt tears burning in his eyes. "I've got a lot to make up for." "Then start making it up. Tomorrow." "What's tomorrow?" Hawk smiled. "Tomorrow we celebrate. and then we rebuild. That's what family does. Daniel looked back at the restaurant, at his mother silhouetted in the window. She waved. He waved back. And for the first time in 8 years, Daniel Sullivan knew exactly where he belonged. The first rays of sunlight hit Silver Ridge like a blessing. Margaret hadn't slept. Couldn't sleep. She sat at the counter of her restaurant, hands wrapped around a cold cup of coffee, watching the bikers outside slowly stir awake. They'd won. Against all odds. Against a man with unlimited resources and zero conscience. They'd won. So why did she feel so empty? Daniel found her there at 6 a.m. He'd been up all night, too, helping coordinate with police, giving statements, making sure every biker who'd risked their life had a warm meal and a place to rest. You should sleep, Ma. So should you. He sat beside her. For a long moment, neither spoke. What happens now? Margaret finally asked. Crane's done. The FBI took custody this morning. Between the assault charges, the corruption evidence, and the attempted murder, he's looking at 20 years minimum. That's not what I meant. And then Daniel looked at her. Really looked. I know. Margaret set down her coffee. You came back to help me, to save me, and you did. She paused. But what happens when there's nothing left to save when the crisis is over? Do you disappear again? The question hung in the air like smoke. Ma, because I can't do it again, Daniel. I can't watch you ride away and spend another 8 years wondering if you're alive or dead. Her voice cracked. I'm 81 years old. I don't have 8 more years to waste on waiting. Daniel's throat tightened. I'm not leaving. You said that before. The night your father died. You said you'd never leave me alone. I know. And then Eddie happened, and you were gone before I could even say goodbye. Tears were streaming down her face now. Not angry tears. Tired ones. I love you, Daniel. I've never stopped loving you. But I need more than love this time. I need you to be here. Really here. Not just when things are falling apart. Was Daniel took his mother's hands. They were small, fragile. The hands that had held him when he cried as a child. The hands that had waved goodbye when he rode off to join the club. The hands that had written letters he never answered. I'm staying, Ma, not because of Crane, not because of the restaurant, because I finally understand what I lost when I left. What's that? Everything that matters. Margaret searched his face, looking for the lie, looking for the escape route he was already planning. She didn't find one. You mean it. I mean it. I'm done running. I'm done hiding. I'm done pretending that being alone is the same as being strong. He pulled her into his arms. I'm sorry, Ma, for all of it, for every day I wasn't here, for every birthday I missed, for every Christmas you spent alone. Margaret held her son like he might disappear if she let go. I forgive you, baby. I forgave you the moment you left. I just needed you to forgive yourself. They stayed like that until the sun was fully up. Mother and son. Finally together. Finally whole. The news vans arrived at 8 a.m. 3 local stations. 2 national networks. A documentary crew from Los Angeles that had somehow gotten wind of the story. Margaret refused every interview. I'm not interested in being famous, she told the persistent reporter from CNN. I just want to run my restaurant. But Mrs. Sullivan, your story is inspiring millions of people. The video has over 50 million views. You're a symbol of, I'm not a symbol. I'm a tired old woman who makes good pancakes. She pointed toward the door. Now either order something or leave. I've got customers to serve. The reporter ordered pancakes. They were the best she'd ever had. Daniel handled the media as best he could. Short statements, no details, constant redirects to Margaret's desire for privacy. But he couldn't stop the story from spreading. By noon, the Angel of Silver Ridge was trending worldwide. Margaret Sullivan's face was on every news channel. Her story was being shared in 12 languages, and people started showing up. Not reporters, not tourists. People who'd been hurt. People who'd lost hope. People who'd seen the video and driven hundreds of miles just to meet the woman who refused to break. A mother from Albuquerque, whose son had been killed by a drunk driver. She just wanted to shake Margaret's hand. A veteran from Phoenix, who'd lost his home to a corrupt developer. He wanted to thank her for fighting back. A teenager from California who'd been bullied so badly she'd considered ending her life. She wanted to tell Margaret that watching her stand up had given her courage to keep going. One by one they came. And one by one Margaret welcomed them. She didn't have answers, didn't have advice. She just listened. Made coffee. Sometimes held their hands while they cried. Daniel watched from behind the counter, amazed. "How does she do it?" he asked Carmen. "After everything she's been through, how does she have anything left to give?" Carmen smiled. "That's not how giving works. The more you give, the more you have. At least that's what she taught me. She taught you that she teaches everyone who pays attention." By 3 p.m., Hawk found Daniel sitting alone on the restaurant's back steps. "You okay, brother?" "I don't know." Daniel stared at the ruins of the shed. "I keep thinking about all the time I wasted. All the years I could have been here. Can't change the past. I know, but I can't stop thinking about it either." Hawk sat beside him, pulled out 2 cigars, lit one, handed the other to Daniel. "You know what Eddie told me the week before he died?" Daniel's whole body tensed. "Don't. He told me you were the best man he'd ever known. Said riding with you made him feel like he could do anything. Be anyone. Hawk, he worshipped you, Ghost. Not because you were perfect. Because you weren't. Because you made mistakes and owned them. Because you treated him like a man when everyone else still saw a kid." Daniel's hands were shaking. "He died because of me." "He died because a drunk driver ran a red light. That's not the same thing. I should have what predicted the future stopped time." Hawk's voice was firm but kind. "You're good, brother, but you're not God." Daniel said nothing. The cigar burned untouched between his fingers. "Eddie's mother," Hawk said quietly. "She's still in Las Cruces, still waiting to talk to you." Daniel's jaw clenched. "I can't. You can, and you will." Hawk stood up. "Not today, not tomorrow, but soon. Because that woman deserves to hear about her son from the man who knew him best." "What if she hates me?" "Then at least you'll know. And you can stop hating yourself for something that might not even be real." Hawk walked away, leaving Daniel alone with his ghosts. At 6 p.m., Sheriff Roy Dawkins walked into Sullivan's roadside grill. The room went quiet. He stood just inside the door, hat in his hands, looking like a man facing a firing squad. "I know I'm probably not welcome here," he said to the room, "but I needed to say something." Margaret stepped forward. "Go ahead, Roy." Dawkins took a deep breath. "I've been the sheriff of this town for 12 years. In that time I've taken bribes, looked the other way, let men like Marcus Crane do whatever they wanted because it was easier than fighting back." His voice cracked. "I told myself it was just the way things were, that one man couldn't change a broken system. But that was a lie. The truth is I was scared. Scared of losing my job, scared of losing my pension, scared of being alone." He looked at Margaret. "You weren't scared. You had every reason to be. But you stood your ground anyway, and you showed me what courage actually looks like." He reached into his pocket, pulled out his badge. I'm resigning. Effective immediately. I've already talked to the state police, told them everything I know about every dirty deal I've ever been part of. Roy, Margaret started. I'm not asking for forgiveness. I don't deserve it. I just wanted you to know that you changed something in me. Something I thought was dead a long time ago. He set the badge on the counter. This town deserves better than what I gave it. Maybe now it'll get the chance to find it. He turned to leave. Roy. He stopped. Margaret walked over and picked up the badge, held it for a moment, then pressed it back into his hands. Quitting is easy. Staying and making things right is hard. She closed his fingers around the metal. This town doesn't need you to disappear. It needs you to become the man your father was. I don't know if I can. Then figure it out, day by day, choice by choice. She smiled. That's what the rest of us do. Dawkins stared at the badge in his hands, at this woman who had every right to hate him, and chose not to. Why? His voice was barely a whisper. Why are you being kind to me after everything I let happen to you? Because hate is a prison, Roy, and I've been free too long to go back now. The room was silent. Then Grizz stood up from his booth, walked over, extended his hand. We got off on the wrong foot, Sheriff. How about we start over? Dawkins looked at the hand, at the tattoos, at the Hells Angels patch, and he shook it. One by one, the bikers in the room stood. Some nodded. Some offered their own hands. None of them spoke, but the message was clear. Everyone deserves a second chance, even the ones who don't think they do. By 9 p.m., most of the bikers had left. They had jobs to return to, families waiting, lives that had been put on hold for a stranger's mother. But they didn't leave empty-handed. Each one stopped to say goodbye to Margaret. Some hugged her, some kissed her cheek. Some just stood there, unable to find words for what they felt. Grizz was one of the last to go. Mrs. Sullivan, it's been an honor. The honor's mine, Grizz. You drove 6 hours for someone you'd never met. That's what family does. We're not family. We are now, he smiled. Hell's Angels take care of their own, and whether you like it or not, you're one of us now. Margaret laughed. I don't think I'd look good in leather. You'd look great in leather, but that's not what makes you an angel. He tapped his chest. It's what's in here. And lady, you've got more heart than any rider I've ever known. He hugged her one last time. If you ever need anything, anything at all, you call. I don't care if it's 3 a.m. on Christmas. You call and we'll come. I believe you. Good, because I mean it. He walked out to his bike, threw a leg over, started the engine, and then he was gone. Just another rumble fading into the desert night. Hawk was the last biker standing in Silver Ridge. He found Daniel on the roof of the restaurant, watching the stars. Mind if I join you? Since when do you ask permission? Hawk climbed up, sat beside his brother. Hell of a week. That's one word for it. They sat in comfortable silence, the kind that only comes from decades of shared history. What are you going to do now? Hawk finally asked. Stay. Help Ma run the restaurant. Figure out who I am without the road. And the club. Daniel was quiet for a long moment. I don't know. I took off my patch 8 years ago. I don't know if I can put it back on. Nobody's asking you to. Hawk pulled out another pack of cigars. But you should know you never stopped being our brother. The patch is just leather. What matters is what's underneath. I let you all down. You let yourself down. That's different. Hawk lit his cigar. The club understood why you left. We didn't like it, but we understood. Losing Eddie broke something in you. We all saw it. I should have handled it better. Probably, but you're handling it now. That's what counts. Daniel took the offered cigar this time. Let Hawk light it. Can I ask you something? Anything. Eddie's mother, what's she like? Hawk exhaled slowly. Strong, sad, angry sometimes, but mostly just waiting. Waiting for what? Waiting for someone to tell her that her son mattered, that his life meant something. How do I do that? You show up. You tell her the truth. You let her feel whatever she needs to feel. Hawk looked at him. And then you carry that with you, not as punishment, as purpose. Purpose. Eddie's gone. Nothing changes that. But the way you live your life from now on, that's his legacy. You honor him by being the man he believed you could be. Daniel felt tears burning in his eyes. Didn't bother hiding them. I miss him, Hawk. Every damn day. I know, brother. I know. They sat together until the cigars burned down to nothing. Two old friends. Two broken men. Finding their way back to something that looked like peace. The next morning, Margaret woke to find Daniel already in the kitchen. He was cooking. Badly. What on earth are you doing? Making breakfast. He held up something that might have been an omelet. I wanted to surprise you. You succeeded. That's the most terrifying egg I've ever seen. It's not that bad. Sweetheart, I've been cooking for 60 years. That egg is a crime against nature. Daniel laughed. Actually laughed. The sound was rusty from disuse, but it was real. Okay, fine. You cook. I'll supervise. You'll stay out of my way is what you'll do. Margaret took over the kitchen. Within minutes, the smell of proper bacon and eggs filled the air. Ma, thank you for not giving up on me. She didn't turn around, just kept cooking. That's what mothers do, baby. We never give up, even when we should, even when it hurts, even when our foolish sons run away and don't call for 8 years. I'm sorry. I know you are, and I forgive you. But Daniel... Now she turned. If you ever do that to me again, I will hunt you down myself, and I won't be as gentle as Marcus Crane. Despite everything, Daniel smiled. Yes, ma'am. Good. Now set the table. Carmen and Lily will be here soon. Carmen arrived at 7 a.m. with Lily bouncing on her hip. The little girl had taken to Daniel immediately. Something about his quiet strength reminded her of the father she'd never known. Uncle Danny! She launched herself at him the moment she was through the door. Daniel caught her easily. Hey, Munchkin. What's the word? Pancakes. Grandma Maggie promised pancakes. Did she now? With chocolate chips. That sounds like a bribe. What's a bribe? Something grown-ups do when they want kids to behave. Lily thought about this. Is it working? Probably. Carmen watched them with a soft smile. She's been talking about you all week. Uncle Danny this, Uncle Danny that. You've got yourself a fan. She's got good taste. She's 4. She also thinks the mailman is a superhero. Maybe he is. You don't know. Margaret emerged from the kitchen with a stack of pancakes. All right, enough chattering. Breakfast is ready. They sat together at the big table in the corner. Margaret, Daniel, Carmen, Lily. The closest thing to a family any of them had. And for the first time in longer than any of them could remember, the restaurant felt like home. At noon, a car pulled up outside that nobody recognized. Daniel tensed immediately. Old habits. But when the door opened, it wasn't a threat. It was a woman. Mid-50s. Gray hair pulled back in a tight bun. Eyes that had seen too much pain. She stood outside the restaurant for a long moment, just staring at the door. Then she walked in. Margaret looked up from the counter. Can I help you? The woman's eyes scanned the room. Found Daniel. "Your ghost." Daniel's blood went cold. "Who's asking? My name is Patricia Chen." Her voice broke. "I'm Eddie's mother." The world stopped. Daniel couldn't move, couldn't breathe, couldn't do anything but stare at this woman he'd spent 8 years running from. "I came to..." Patricia swallowed hard. "I came to talk to you about my son." Margaret stepped forward. "Why don't you sit down, dear? I'll get you some coffee." "Thank you." Patricia's legs were shaking as she lowered herself into a booth. "I'm sorry to just show up like this. I saw the news coverage, recognized the town, recognized..." She looked at Daniel. "Him." Daniel still hadn't moved. Margaret touched his arm. "Daniel, go talk to her." "I can't. You can, and you will." Her voice was gentle but firm. "This woman lost her son. The least you can do is listen." And every step felt like walking through concrete. Daniel slid into the booth across from Patricia Chen, the woman whose son had died under his watch, the woman whose face had haunted his nightmares for 8 years. "I don't know what to say." His voice was barely audible. "Then let me start." Patricia's hands were trembling around her coffee cup. "When Eddie died, I wanted someone to blame. I needed someone to blame, and you were the easiest target. You had every right." "No, I didn't." She cut him off. "I spent 5 years hating you, 5 years imagining what I would say if I ever found you, how I would scream at you, hit you, make you feel even a fraction of the pain I felt." Tears were streaming down her face now. "But then I started going through Eddie's things, reading his journals, his letters." She pulled a worn envelope from her purse. "He wrote about you constantly, about how much he respected you, how you pushed him to be better, how you treated him like a man when everyone else still saw a boy." She slid the envelope across the table. "He wrote this the week before he died. I found it in his jacket pocket. It's addressed to you." Daniel's hands were shaking so badly he could barely pick up the envelope. Inside was a single sheet of paper. Eddie's handwriting. Cramped and messy like always. "Dear Ghost, I know this is weird writing a letter to someone I see every day, but there are things I want to say that I can't say out loud. Guy stuff, I guess. You've been more of a father to me than my actual father ever was. You taught me how to ride, how to fix an engine, how to be a man who keeps his word. You never treated me like a kid even when I acted like one. I know I'm not the best rider in the club. I know I make mistakes. But every time I fall, you're there to pick me up. Every time I doubt myself, you remind me why I started. I don't know what the future holds. Maybe I'll be a full patch member someday. Maybe I'll start my own family. But whatever happens, I want you to know something. You saved my life, not from a bullet or a crash. You saved me from becoming the kind of man my father was. Angry, bitter, alone. Because of you, I know what loyalty means, what brotherhood means, what it means to be worthy of something bigger than yourself. So thank you, Ghost, for everything, for believing in me when nobody else did. I'll make you proud someday. I promise. Your brother, Eddie." Daniel couldn't see the words anymore. Tears were flooding his vision. "He never got to give it to you." Patricia's voice was quiet. "I found it in his pocket after the accident. I've been carrying it ever since, waiting for the right moment. I don't deserve this. Maybe not, but Eddie wanted you to have it." She reached across and touched his hand. "My son loved you, Daniel. He loved you like a father. And I spent years hating the man he loved most in the world." She took a shaky breath. "I'm not here to blame you. Not anymore. I'm here to tell you that Eddie's death wasn't your fault. And I'm here to ask you to stop punishing yourself for something you couldn't have prevented." Daniel looked up at this woman. This woman who had lost everything. This woman who had every right to hate him. How do you do it? His voice was raw. How do you forgive? I don't know if I have. Not completely. Patricia wiped her eyes. But I know that holding on to anger was destroying me. And I know that Eddie wouldn't have wanted that. She squeezed his hand. You carry my son in your heart. I can see it in your eyes. That's not a burden, Daniel. That's a gift. He lives on through you, through the choices you make, through the man you become. I don't know how to be that man. Then figure it out, day by day, choice by choice. She smiled sadly. That's what Eddie would have wanted. That's what I want. Daniel broke. 8 years of grief. 8 years of guilt. 8 years of running from a pain he thought would kill him. It all came pouring out, and Patricia Chen held the hand of the man who couldn't save her son, and let him cry. Later that afternoon, Daniel walked to the edge of town. There was a small hill there overlooking the desert, the kind of place where you could see forever. He sat down, pulled out Eddie's letter, read it again. Then he started talking. Hey kid, it's been a while. The wind was his only answer. I'm sorry I ran. I'm sorry I couldn't save you. I'm sorry for every day I spent hiding instead of honoring your memory. He looked at the horizon. Your mom came to see me today. She gave me your letter. And his voice broke. She forgave me. I don't know why. I don't know how. But she did. He wiped his eyes. I'm going to stay here, Eddie, in this town, with my mother. I'm going to try to be the man you wrote about, the man you believed I could be. He folded the letter carefully, placed it over his heart. I'll make you proud, kid. I promise. The wind picked up swirling dust around him like an embrace, and for just a moment Daniel could have sworn he heard laughter, bright and young and full of life. Eddie's laughter. He smiled. Ride safe, brother, until we meet again. When Daniel returned to the restaurant, Margaret was waiting for him. How did it go? She forgave me. His voice was hollow with disbelief. Patricia, Eddie's mother. She forgave me. I know. How could you possibly know? Margaret smiled. Because that's what mothers do. We forgive, even when it breaks us, even when it takes years. She touched his face. Especially then. Daniel pulled his mother into his arms, held her like he was afraid she might disappear. I love you, Ma. I love you too, baby. Always have. Always will. I know. He pulled back, looked into her eyes. And I'm finally starting to believe it. That night, Daniel found Carmen sitting alone in the restaurant after closing. Lily was asleep on the office cot, thumb in her mouth. Mind if I join you? Carmen looked up, wiped her eyes quickly. Sure. Daniel slid into the booth across from her. You've been crying. No, I haven't. Carmen, she sighed. Lily's school called today. They're having a father-daughter dance next month. Okay. She came home asking where her daddy was, why she doesn't have one like the other kids. Daniel's chest tightened. What did you tell her? The truth, that her father wasn't ready to be a dad, that he left before she was born, that some people just can't stay. How'd she take it? She asked if it was her fault. The words hit Daniel like a physical blow. She's 5 years old, Daniel. 5. And she already thinks she's not good enough to be loved. Carmen was crying again. Hard. Ugly sobs that shook her whole body. Daniel moved to her side of the booth. Didn't speak. Just waited. I'm so scared of messing her up, Carmen finally said, "of making her feel the way I felt growing up. My dad left when I was 3. My mom worked 2 jobs, was never home. I spent my whole childhood feeling like I wasn't worth staying for. Carmen, I swore I'd be different. I swore my daughter would never feel that way." Her voice broke. "But how can I give her something I never had? How can I teach her she's worthy of love when I don't even believe it about myself?" Daniel was quiet for a long moment. "Can I tell you something?" She nodded. "I spent 8 years running from my mother. 8 years convinced I wasn't worth her love, that my mistakes made me unforgivable." "That's different." "Is it?" He turned to face her. "I felt exactly what Lily feels, like I wasn't enough, like something was wrong with me, like the people who left did so because I deserved to be abandoned. But you were wrong." "Exactly. The people who leave, they're not leaving because of us. They're leaving because of them. Their fear, their weakness, their inability to face what scares them." Carmen looked at him. "I know that in my head. But my hearts are stupid." Daniel's voice was gentle. "They believe the worst about us, even when it's not true. That's why we need people around us who remind us of the truth." "What truth?" "That Lily is the luckiest girl in the world, because she has you. A mother who works herself to the bone to give her a good life, who cries in empty restaurants because she cares so damn much." Carmen stared at him, tears still streaming. "You really believe that?" "I know it, because I've seen it." He stood up, offered his hand. "Now come on, dry your eyes. We've got a long day tomorrow." Carmen took his hand, squeezed it. "Thank you, Daniel." "Don't thank me. Thank my mother. She's the one who taught me that love shows up even when it's hard." He paused. "Especially when it's hard." The next morning, Daniel made a decision. He found Carmen during her break. "That father-daughter dance. When is it?" 3 weeks. Why? I'd like to take Lily, if that's okay with you." Carmen stared at him. "You want to what?" "Take her to the dance. Be her stand-in dad for the night. Show her that men can show up when it matters." "Daniel, you don't have to." "I know I don't have to. I want to." He paused. "That little girl looks at me like I'm some kind of hero. The least I can do is try to live up to it." Carmen's eyes filled with tears again. But these were different. "She's going to lose her mind." "Is that a yes?" "That's a hell yes." She threw her arms around him. "Thank you. Thank you so much." "Don't thank me yet. I haven't danced since 1987. I might step on her feet." "She won't care. Trust me." That evening, Daniel told Margaret about his plan. She stopped washing dishes mid-scrub. "You're taking Lily to a dance. Father-daughter dance. Yes. You, Daniel, I don't dance, Sullivan. The man who refused to dance at his own prom." Times change. Margaret set down the dish, walked over to her son, studied his face like she was seeing him for the first time. "Who are you, and what have you done with my son? Ma. 8 years ago, you couldn't even say hello to a child without panicking. Now you're volunteering to be someone's stand-in father. It's just a dance." "No, it's not." Her eyes were wet. "It's not just a dance, and you know it. That little girl doesn't have a father, and you're stepping up to fill that role. Even if it's just for one night. She deserves better than what she got." "So did you." Margaret touched his face. "And look at the man you've become anyway." Daniel couldn't speak. The lump in his throat was too large. "Your father would be so proud of you," Margaret whispered. "So incredibly proud." "I wish he was here." "He is baby. He's in every good thing you do, every kind word, every choice to stay instead of run." She smiled. "That's what legacy is. It's not about gravestones or inheritances. It's about the pieces of ourselves we leave in the people we love. 2 weeks later, the town received unexpected news. Sheriff Roy Dawkins called a press conference. Daniel watched from the restaurant with Margaret and Carmen. "Good afternoon. I'm here to announce that after extensive investigation, all charges against Crane Development have been substantiated. Marcus Crane has pled guilty to 37 counts, including assault, bribery, extortion, and attempted murder." The restaurant erupted in cheers. "But that's not why I called this conference." Dawkins took a deep breath. "I'm also announcing my candidacy for re-election as Sheriff of Silver Ridge." Murmurs from the crowd. "I know some of you are surprised. 6 months ago, I was ready to turn in my badge. I'd spent years being exactly the kind of lawman this town didn't need. Corrupt, compromised, complicit." He looked directly at the camera. "But someone taught me that quitting is easy. Staying and making things right is hard. I've spent the last 6 months trying to be the man my father was, the man this town deserves, and I'm asking for the chance to keep trying." His voice cracked. "I'm not perfect. I've made mistakes I'll spend the rest of my life regretting. But I believe in second chances. I believe in redemption. And I believe that with your support we can make Silver Ridge the town it was always meant to be." He stepped back from the microphone. The crowd was silent. Then slowly someone started clapping. Then another person. Then another. Within seconds, the entire press conference had become a standing ovation. Margaret wiped her eyes. "He did it. He really did." Daniel shook his head in disbelief. 6 months ago, I wanted to put that man through a wall. Now I'm rooting for him. That's how change works, baby. One step at a time. One choice at a time. You taught him that you know. The stuff about quitting being easy. I just told him what your father told me." Margaret smiled. Good advice has a way of getting passed around. The night of the father-daughter dance arrived faster than anyone expected. Daniel stood in front of Margaret's bathroom mirror, struggling with a tie he hadn't worn in 20 years. "You look like you're preparing for battle," Margaret said from the doorway. "I feel like I'm preparing for battle. It's a school gymnasium. There will be punch and cookies and little girls in fancy dresses. You'll survive. What if I mess up?" "You will. That's guaranteed." She walked over and fixed his tie properly. "But Lily won't remember your mistakes. She'll remember that you showed up, that you cared enough to be there." "How do you know?" "Because that's what I remember about your father. Not the perfect moments, the imperfect ones where he tried anyway." The doorbell rang. Daniel froze. "That's them. Ma, I can't." "Yes, you can. Now go answer the door." He walked downstairs on legs that felt like jelly, opened the door, and forgot how to breathe. Lily stood on the porch in a pink dress covered in sparkles. Her hair was braided with ribbons. She clutched a small purse like it contained all her worldly treasures. "Uncle Danny!" She bounced with excitement. "Do you like my dress? Mommy got it special? You look—" He had to clear his throat. "You look beautiful, Munchkin." "You look fancy too." She grabbed his hand. "Come on, we're going to be late." Carmen stood behind her daughter, camera ready. "Can I get a picture first?" Daniel knelt beside Lily, put his arm around her. "Say cheese, cheese." The flash went off. Carmen looked at the photo, started crying. "Oh, for Pete's sake," she laughed through her tears. "I promised myself I wouldn't do this." "Mommy's being silly," Lily announced. "She's been crying all day." "Happy tears, baby. Happy tears." The drive to the school was filled with Lily's chatter. She told Daniel about her best friend, Sophie, about her teacher, Mrs. Rodriguez, about the goldfish in the classroom that she was convinced was actually a secret agent. Daniel listened to every word. "Uncle Danny, yeah, Munchkin, are you my daddy now?" The question hit him like a truck. He pulled the car over, turned to face her. "Lily, I'm not your daddy." Her face fell. "But," he continued quickly, "I'm something maybe even better. I'm your friend, someone who cares about you very much, and who will always be there when you need me. Promise, cross my heart." She considered this. Sophie's daddy travels a lot for work. She never sees him, so maybe having a friend who's always there is better. Maybe it is. Okay. She nodded decisively. "You can be my special friend, but only if you promise to never leave." "I promise." She held out her pinky. "Pinky swear." Daniel hooked his massive pinky around her tiny one. "Pinky swear." Lily grinned. "Now can we go? I really want to dance." The gymnasium was chaos. Dozens of little girls in their best dresses dragging their fathers toward the dance floor, balloons everywhere, a disco ball spinning overhead. Lily pulled Daniel into the crowd without hesitation. "Come on, the music's starting." The DJ played something upbeat. Lily started bouncing. Daniel tried to follow. "You're not very good at this," she observed. "I know. That's okay. I'll teach you." For the next hour, a 5-year-old girl taught a 54-year-old former biker how to dance. They did the chicken dance, the Macarena, something Lily called the wiggly worm that Daniel was pretty sure she made up on the spot. He stepped on her feet. She stepped on his. They both laughed until they couldn't breathe. And somewhere in the middle of it all, Daniel felt something he hadn't felt in decades. Pure, uncomplicated joy. During a slow song, Lily insisted on standing on his feet while they swayed. "Uncle Danny." "Yeah." "I'm glad you came back to Silver Ridge." "Me too, Munchkin." "Mommy says you were gone for a long time, that you were sad about something." "I was. Are you still sad?" Daniel thought about it. Really thought. "Sometimes, but less than before. And tonight," he spun her gently. "Tonight I'm not sad at all." Lily hugged his leg. "Good, because sad is yucky." "You're absolutely right. I'm always right. Ask Mommy." He laughed. "I'll take your word for it." When they got home, Lily was asleep before they pulled into the driveway. Daniel carried her inside, laid her gently on her bed, tucked the blankets around her. "Thank you." Carmen stood in the doorway, watching. I've never seen her that happy. She's easy to make happy. Not usually. She's been asking about her father more and more, wondering why she's different from the other kids. But tonight, Carmen wiped her eyes. Tonight she felt normal, like everyone else. She's better than everyone else. I know, but she doesn't. Not yet. Daniel kissed Lily's forehead gently. She will. Give her time. He headed for the door, then stopped. Carmen. Yeah, I meant what I said. I'm not going anywhere. Whatever Lily needs, whatever you need, I'm here. That's a big promise. I've broken enough promises in my life. Time to start keeping them. 6 months had passed since the night Marcus Crane fell. Silver Ridge was different now. Not just the buildings or the streets, the people. They walked taller, smiled more, looked each other in the eye instead of hurrying past with heads down. And at the center of it all stood Sullivan's Roadside Grill, busier than it had ever been. Margaret poured coffee for the morning rush, moving between tables with the ease of someone who'd done this for half a century. But there was something new in her step, a lightness that hadn't been there before. Daniel watched her from behind the counter. You're staring again. Just making sure you're not overdoing it. I've been overdoing it for 50 years. I'm not stopping now. The doctor said, the doctor can mind his own business. Margaret refilled Henry Castillo's cup without breaking stride. I'll rest when I'm dead. That's what I'm afraid of. She paused, looked at her son. Daniel, I appreciate your concern. Truly. But this restaurant is my life. It's what keeps me going. If you take that away from me, I might as well dig my own grave. I'm not trying to take anything away. Then stop hovering. She smiled to soften the words. I've got good years left in me. Let me use them. But later that night, after the restaurant closed, Margaret asked Daniel to sit down. We need to talk. Daniel's stomach dropped. About what? About something I've been putting off. Ma, what's going on? Margaret took a deep breath, reached across the table, took his hands. The doctor called yesterday. The tests came back. What tests? What are you talking about? It's cancer, baby, pancreatic, stage 4. The world stopped spinning. No, Daniel shook his head. No, there must be a mistake. We'll get second opinions. We'll find specialists. There's no mistake. I've known for 3 months. 3 months? Why didn't you tell me? Because I needed time. Time to make peace with it. Time to figure out how to say goodbye. Daniel couldn't breathe, couldn't think. His mother, his anchor, the woman who'd held everything together. How long? 6 months, maybe less. No, we'll fight this. Daniel. Her voice was calm, steady. I'm 81 years old. I've lived a full life, a good life. I've seen things I never expected to see, loved people I never expected to love. Tears were streaming down his face. I'm not ready. Neither am I, but that's not how it works. We don't get to choose when we go. We only get to choose how we live until then. Ma, I want to spend my last months right here, in this restaurant, surrounded by the people I love. I want to see Lily grow, watch Carmen thrive, watch you become the man I always knew you could be. She smiled through her own tears. That's all I want, Daniel, to be present, to be loved, to be remembered. You will be. I swear to God, you will be remembered forever. Then that's enough. That's more than enough. They held each other in the empty restaurant, mother and son, beginning and end, and in that moment Daniel understood something his father had tried to teach him decades ago. Death isn't the enemy. Fear is. Living in terror of the end instead of embracing every moment of the journey. His mother had taught him how to live. Now she would teach him how to let go. The next 6 months were the most precious of Daniel's life. Every morning he woke early to have coffee with his mother. They talked about everything. His childhood, her marriage, the dreams they'd had, and the ones they'd abandoned. Every afternoon, he helped her run the restaurant, took over more and more responsibilities as she grew weaker, but never pushed her aside, never made her feel useless. Every evening they sat on the porch and watched the sunset, sometimes in silence, sometimes sharing stories, always together. Lily came by every day after school. She'd climb into Margaret's lap and tell her about her day, about Sophie and Mrs. Rodriguez and the goldfish that definitely wasn't a secret agent anymore because she'd asked, and it hadn't answered. Margaret lived for those visits, lived for that little girl's laugh. She reminds me of you, Margaret told Daniel one night, when you were small, before the world got complicated. I don't remember being that happy. You were, for a while. She smiled. And you will be again, I promise. How can you promise that? Because I know you. Because I raised you. Because the same strength that got me through these 81 years is in you too. Carmen became like a daughter to Margaret in those final months. She spent every spare moment at the restaurant, cooking, cleaning, just sitting with Margaret when the pain got bad. "Thank you," Margaret told her one day. "For everything. For Lily. For being there for my son when I can't be anymore. Don't talk like that." "I have to. Someone needs to look after him when I'm gone. Someone needs to remind him that he's worth loving." Carmen wiped her eyes. "Mrs. S., we're not, not yet, but you will be." Margaret smiled knowingly. "I've seen the way you look at each other, the way you lean in when he talks, the way he lights up when you walk into a room." "He's still healing." "He'll always be healing. That's what life is. But healing is easier when you're not alone." She took Carmen's hand. "Promise me you'll take care of him. Promise me you'll give him the family he deserves." Carmen was crying openly now. "I promise." "Good." Margaret closed her eyes. "That's all I needed to hear." 3 days before the end, Margaret asked Daniel for one final thing. "Take me for a ride." "What? On your motorcycle? I've never been on one, and I'd like to know what all the fuss is about before I go." "Ma, you're too weak. The doctor said I'm dying. I'd like to feel alive one more time." Daniel couldn't refuse her. He wrapped her in blankets, secured her behind him on the Harley, made sure she was holding on tight. "Ready. I've been ready for 81 years. He started the engine, and they rode. Through Silver Ridge, past the restaurant, past the house where Daniel grew up, past the cemetery where Patrick Sullivan was buried. Margaret held on to her son and felt the wind on her face for the first time, felt the freedom that had called to him all those years, understood finally why he'd needed the road. "I get it now," she shouted over the engine. "Get what? Why you couldn't stay? Why the road called you? This feeling, it's like flying." "Yeah, it is. Thank you, baby. Thank you for this. Thank you, Ma, for everything." They rode until the sun set, until the stars came out, until Margaret's arms grew too weak to hold on. Then Daniel brought her home, laid her in her bed, and held her hand through the night. Margaret Sullivan passed away at 3:47 a.m. on a Tuesday morning. Daniel was beside her. So were Carmen and Lily, who'd insisted on sleeping in Grandma Maggie's room, even though she didn't fully understand why. Margaret's last words were simple. "I love you. All of you. Live well." And then she was gone. The funeral was the biggest Silver Ridge had ever seen. Over 500 people packed the small church. Bikers and businessmen, politicians and pancake lovers. Everyone whose life Margaret Sullivan had touched. Daniel gave the eulogy. He spoke about her strength, her kindness, her absolute refusal to give up on anyone, no matter how lost they seemed. "My mother used to say that angels don't always have wings. Sometimes they have aprons, sometimes they have coffee pots, sometimes they ride motorcycles." He looked at the crowd. She never thought of herself as special, never wanted recognition or praise. She just wanted to serve, to love, to make people feel seen. His voice broke. "I spent 8 years running from this town, running from my mother, running from myself, and she never stopped waiting, never stopped believing I'd come home." He looked at Margaret's photograph on the altar. "I'm home now, Ma. I'm finally home. And I promise on everything I am and everything I'll become that I will spend the rest of my life being worthy of your love." He stepped back. "Rest easy, Angel. You've earned it." 2 years later, Sullivan's Roadside Grill was renamed Margaret's Place. The new sign read below it in smaller letters, "Where Angels Eat." Daniel ran it now. with Carmen. They'd married 6 months after Margaret's passing. A small ceremony. Just family and a few hundred bikers who'd shown up uninvited. Lily was 7. She still called him Uncle Danny, even though he'd officially adopted her. She said Daddy felt weird. He said he didn't care what she called him as long as she called him something. The annual Hells Angels Memorial Ride had tripled in size. Bikers came from all over the country now. Not just to honor Margaret, but to experience the town she'd saved. Silver Ridge was thriving. New businesses, new families, new hope. All because one old woman refused to break. On the 2nd anniversary of Margaret's death, Daniel rode to the cemetery alone. He knelt beside her grave, next to Patrick's, just like she'd wanted. "Hey, Ma, it's me." He placed fresh flowers on the headstone. "Lily lost her first tooth last week. Made me put it under her pillow and pretend to be the tooth fairy. I'm pretty sure she knows it's me, but she plays along anyway." He smiled. "Carmen's pregnant. We just found out. She wanted to wait until today to tell anyone. Said you should be the first to know." His voice cracked. "I miss you every day. Every single day. But I'm okay. Really okay. You were right about healing, about not running, about love being stronger than fear." He touched the cold stone. "I'm the man you always believed I could be. Not perfect, never perfect, but present, loyal, true." He stood up. "Save a seat for me up there, Ma, but don't expect me too soon. I've got a lot of living left to do." He walked back to his Harley, threw a leg over, started the engine, and rode into the sunset. Because that's what angels do. They ride for those who can't. They protect those who have no one. They love with everything they have, even when it hurts. And they never ever give up. Margaret Sullivan taught the world that an 81-year-old woman with nothing but courage could stand against the powerful and win. Daniel Sullivan taught himself that running from pain only makes it grow. And Silver Ridge taught everyone who passed through that home isn't a place. It's the people who refuse to let you fall. In the years that followed, the story spread far beyond New Mexico. Books were written, documentaries filmed. Millions of people heard about the widow who faced down a monster, and the bikers who answered her call. But the real legacy wasn't in the headlines. It was in the little girl who learned that fathers don't have to be blood. It was in the sheriff who chose redemption over surrender. It was in the biker who came home after 8 years and finally stopped running. It was in every person who heard the story and decided that courage was possible, that kindness could roar, that love was worth fighting for. And if you ever find yourself in Silver Ridge, New Mexico, stop by Margaret's place. Order the pancakes. They're still the best in the Southwest. And if you listen closely, you might hear the rumble of engines in the distance. That's just the angels passing through, watching over those who need it most. Because in the end, that's what Margaret Sullivan taught us all. Kindness never dies, courage never fades, and true angels never stop riding.